Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today we're going to be doing a recommendations video. In this video, I'm going to be recommending a couple of books that I have read and enjoyed that feature main characters with disabilities and or chronic illnesses. I have 4 that I'm going to talk about, and before I talk about the books, I just want to mention I don't have any of these disabilities, so I cannot speak to the authenticity of the disability. So make sure that you are reading reviews from Own Voices reviewers in order to get that authenticity reading. But these are books that I've read and enjoyed and haven't heard anything bad about the representation within them. Most of the books on this list I am going to talk about are characters with physical disabilities. And let's go. So the first one that I want to talk about is The Quarrymaster. This is a book that I've mentioned on my channel before that I read recently and loved. It is actually a alien romance between workplace alien romance with like a grumpy sunshine trope where there's a grumpy alien and a sunshiny human woman. But in this book, the heroine Isla is missing part of her like her lower arm. So she has like a stump that's like about like halfway-ish down her arm. And this is mentioned quite a bit in the book because she works in the quarry with the other human women where they're moving these heavy rocks and getting the heavy rocks to be used to build houses. And she obviously doesn't have 2 hands to be able to pick up the rocks, but it doesn't slow her down really. She is very hardworking and very determined to go at the same pace as everyone else that's there. And the man, the alien man, he at first doesn't even realize that she is missing part of her arm until the other people point it out, because she wasn't working any differently than anyone else. But once it gets pointed out to him, he realizes how well she's adapted to missing part of her arm to be able to move around and do a lot of the work that's required of her without without being slowed down by it. And he becomes very, it's a moment where he becomes much more, he notices her more because he really likes that she is such a hard worker, and that working and sticking to the schedule is really important to him. So when he sees that even though she has this disability, that she is still working hard and not complaining or anything, he becomes much more, he likes her a lot more because of that. The second book that I'm going to talk about is A Heart of Blood and Ashes. I have it here. This book is a fantasy romance, and it is about the main character, Yven, is the one who has a disability. She has had a lot happen to her in her life. She's been severely abused by her father, I think it is, and her brothers, and they are actually the reason for her disability. She has a limp because her father, I think, shattered her knee and it never healed properly, and so because of that she still has a limp, and it becomes a major point of a book because she is escaping, and so she has to run, and she has to survive in this very war-torn world where she is trying to like run from her father and run from her brothers and escape from where they have her locked up. And obviously when you have this limp, she has this knee injury, she can't run very well or do like the stairs very well, and that causes her a lot of distress because she needs to escape. And she also has missing fingers, I think from cold, but she doesn't let it stop her from living. Like, she really is a fighter, and I liked her a lot. She was my favorite aspect of this book, was her character, because she is such a fighter. She is such a strong heroine who is not going to slow down in the face of her injury. And she's really badass to read about. And the Matic and her, who is the hero, and her relationship in this book is very, very good. I really, really liked the romance aspect of it. The next one that I'm going to talk about is Always Only You by Chloe Leese. This is one that I read recently and absolutely adored. The heroine in this book has rheumatoid arthritis, and she also has autism. But I'm specifically going to be talking about the rheumatoid arthritis aspect. And she, so this is a romance between a hockey player and the social media manager for the hockey team. And Frankie, who is the social media manager, she has rheumatoid arthritis, and because of this condition, rheumatoid arthritis eats away at your joints. It messes with your joints, and hers is really affecting her hip. So she has really bad hip pain and ended up walking with a cane at a young age because of it. And I loved her with her cane because she does not let it slow her down. She uses it kind of like an accessory, where she like will wave it and point it at people, and she's really into like wizardry and like Harry Potter, so she like waves it like a wand. And I loved that. She was so confident with her cane, and I really liked that. She also, because of the cane and because of her hip, she has trouble walking on uneven ground. And I really liked the way that the hero tried to like help her without being too overbearing. So he just kind of like kept an eye on her to make sure she wouldn't fall, but wasn't like overly hovering when they're walking over like the grass or something, because it's uneven, because it's not as easy for her to walk on. But he wasn't too overbearing, which I liked a lot. He wasn't too suffocating, which is something that Frankie really wanted, because she didn't want to be seen as somebody who really needed too much assistance. She understood her own abilities, and she didn't want to let anyone else tell her what she was capable of. Okay, the last one that I want to talk about is Falling from the Sky by Serena Bowen. This is part of her Gravity series, and this one is about a former snowboarder named Hank, who had a snowboarding accident and ended up in a wheelchair. He is paralyzed below his waist. I think it's below his waist, because of the snowboarding accident that he had. And he has to go from being somebody who was always he was a professional snowboarder, and he went from being somebody who was always on a snowboard and always out in the snow and always doing these like extreme sports, to being in a wheelchair. And it was such an extreme change in lifestyle for him, because there were so many things that he now wasn't able to do. He was also in a lot of pain because of it. He had to have his and having to do his like whole house redone, and having to move to a different house because of the fact that he couldn't go upstairs, couldn't go up the stairs to get into the house. It had to make the house and his life wheelchair accessible, which was a large change from somebody who used to be an extreme snowboarder. And he had to adjust to life in a wheelchair, and this romance is between him and his physical therapist, I'm pretty sure. And one of my favorite scenes in this book is when they get into talking about his ability to have sex after being paralyzed. Like, he has to like talk about it with a friend and be like asking like, can I still do that? Is that something that, like, with being paralyzed below the waist, that's something that you have to, he does all of your plumbing work and everything. And I liked seeing that scene because it was like him worried that that was something that he wasn't going to be able to do. But I like seeing that scene because it's not something that, like, it's not an easy conversation to have. And it can be an awkward conversation. I'm sure it's an awkward conversation to have, especially with somebody who is not a doctor. I mean, like, he didn't really want to talk to his doctor about it. And just having that scene and seeing like how that affected him and his mental state, like the going from the extreme snowboarder to a person in a wheelchair, and how that affects his mental state is a huge plot point in this book. But I ended up really liking the way that the story worked out, and I liked the romance. But that's it. Those are the 4 that I was going to talk about. So please let me know in the comments below if you have any recommendations for books that have characters with disabilities. I would love to hear them. I love to read about them. But that's it. So give this video a like if you liked it, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Hope you have a great day.